To the ETF Inspector. It's Friday, June 6th. Everybody's favorite day, Friday. The weekend's here, and it's payday. Probably payday at your work, and definitely payday if you've got YieldMax funds. This video will be coverage for ULTY, YieldMax's Ultra Option Income Strategy ETF, and LFGY, YieldMax's Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income ETF. Before we get into it, just a reminder, I'm also on X, and I just repost YieldMax things as well as let you know when my videos are coming out. So we're up to 580 subscribers on the goal of 1,000, so we're making some progress. Had a pretty big day since yesterday. I know Retire on Dividends said hi to me, mentioned me in his live video this morning, so that might have helped. Usually that's where the big increases come from. But okay, so if you're new here, we go through every trade, every holding, every option for both of those funds. So it's going to be a whole lot of information I'm throwing at you. And if this is your first one, sorry, but Fridays are extra because they close out. They sell weeklies, so they got to close everything out on Friday and open up new ones. So I'll try to my best to get through everything quickly, but no promises. All right, so we will start with ULTY, and we don't consider these the options trades, but we still mention them because it is on their intraday trade file, and there is money coming in and going out. So got into a handful of new stocks within the fund, got out of a few, so let's just go ahead and talk about it. Applied Digital, we added to the position that we already got into either yesterday or the day before. Hims and Hers, we're already in it, just bought some more. Lululemon, I think we were in it a day, maybe two, and we're back out of it. Robinhood added to our position. Snowflake, we are no longer in Snowflake, sold those shares. AppLovin, never even heard of it before, but we bought 30,000 shares of that. Broadcom, we just got into that like 2 days ago, and we're back out. C3.ai, we added to the position we already had. CrowdStrike, another one that we just recently got into, we're out of it, sold the shares. Picked up another 3 times leveraged fund from Direxion, if that's how you say it. So that's a new one. Now we have 3 of those. Reddit, we added to the position we already had. Tempest AI, that's a new one we added today. And Tesla, might as well buy more shares on the dip from yesterday, but didn't take advantage of that. Ended up buying it as it went back up today, but that's okay. So AI, all we did was bought more shares, so we increased, or no, never mind, I'm sorry. We closed out the position. Why is that saying that? Oh, yeah, we got out of AI. So to sell the shares, we also had to close out the options. So we bought the close, the calls, and sold the puts. Only cost us $3,400. APLD, since they added to the position they already had for next week, they just sold some more options to go along with what's already sold. A profit of $86,000. This is AppLovin, the APP. Since we bought shares today, we just started a position, didn't have anything to close out. So $450 is the strike price we sold, collected $204,000, all said and done after purchasing the put to go with it as protection for the shares. Broadcom, we got out of it, so we had to just close out the options we had, so collected $800. Highlighted in yellow, those were just to remind me these are stocks that we are getting out of. So these are just closing out positions, not rolling to next week. Coinbase closed this week's 260s and opened 260s for next week, so we kept the same strike price and profited $185,000. Closed out CrowdStrike, paid $2,800 to close out those options. CoreWeave rolled the next week, closed our 160s for this week and opened 160s for next week, making a profit of nearly $98,000. First Solar closed this week's 157.50s and sold 175s for next week. So this one went against us. That's why we had to pay $9 a share to close it out. Lost $263,000 on that. FTAI, similar. Closed out the 123 strike calls. Had to pay $3.48 a share for them. Sold 131, so we had to roll it up $8. So we were able to get a portion of that back, but not all of it. Lost 61,000. Hims and hers, the shares, the regular options had already been rolled the next week earlier this week. So when they purchased more shares today, they went ahead and opened more options on those shares for next week. $60 strike price, $91,000 profit. Robinhood closed this week's 75s and opened 83s and 84s for next week. I had already closed out these other ones, the 530 contracts to go with it. Overall, lost $183,000. As you can see, right, anytime we're having to roll up nearly $10 and having to pay more than we receive, the stock went against our option call, or our option position. LABU, L-A-B-U. I wrote it down. I don't even remember which one it was. Maybe that might be the, yes, Biotech Bull 3x leverage fund. So bought shares, went ahead and started selling options on them. 64 is the strike price on the calls, $158,000 profit. Lululemon, we went ahead and got rid of those shares and closed out the positions we had. So this was one that lost money, the stock itself. So closing out the calls were cheap, and closing out the puts, which are basically just insurance, ended up making a decent amount of money. And then I'm not sure why in the world. This almost seems like a typo, to be honest. So this could be off. Why would oh, never mind. I was thinking it was 26. It's 260. Yep. So there's a $30+ difference there. That's why. $23. So those puts made money. 586,000 collected on the way out, closing out Lululemon. Mara closed out this week's 15s, opened up 1650s for next week. Had to roll up and out. That's usually not good. Cost us $243,000. Nvidia, that was a win. Closed out this week's 144s for 4 cents. Opened up 145s for next week for $1.41. $157,000 profit. Palantir, another one, we win. Closed out 132s for this week for 7 cents a piece. Opened up 130s for next week for $198. $106,000 profit. Reddit closed the 117s this week and opened 123s and 125s for next week. Overall profit of $62,000. I think we added to the Reddit position. Yes. So that's the only reason that ended up being a profit. If you see the 1200 transaction, those matching up, well, it was still a profit either way. But it would have been pretty small until they went ahead and also sold shares to go along with the new, sold options to go with the new shares. That's where the extra came from. $62,000 profit. RH closed the 185s for this week, opened 200s for next week. So generally that seems like it's a losing week, but there's so much premium that we made out well. So the stock must have ended just real close to 185. $80,000 profit. SMCI closed their 4250s for this week and opened 44s for next week. Nice profit, $145,000. Snowflake, we got out of this stock, so we sold the shares and we closed out the options, and it cost us $92,000 to do it. TEM, Tempest, that was a new one, so we bought a new stock and sold options to go along with it. 67 strike price for next week, $164,000 profit. TNA, this is a triple leveraged small cap bull. closed out our 30s and $30.50 strike price and opened all 33s for next week. Lost $396,000. So this one was right at the money at the close of business today or yesterday. So I would say timing wise, if it probably just had bad timing because I don't think it ended that far. I don't know. I don't think it ended $31, $32, but maybe I'm wrong. I forget. Crunched a lot of numbers before making this video. TQQQ, another one, lost 100,000, closing this week's 73s, selling next week's 76s. Tesla, we just added more shares, so we added on to next week's position. 315 is the strike price on the calls, $64,000 profit. Upstart, we closed this week's 52s and opened 58s for next week, so big jump, $6 increase, so didn't make as much as we spent. $158,000 loss. Vertiv closed out the 113s for this week, opened 121s for next week, had to move up $8. Cost us $125,000. And Vistra Corp closed out 170s for this week, opened up 177.50, so again moving up almost $8. $700 profit. So all said and done, for options trading today, we made $560,000. So for the week, $1.9 million profit on Monday, $3.8 million loss on Tuesday, $1.5 million loss on Wednesday, $1.3 million gain on Thursday, and $560,000 profit on Friday. So make sure you come back. Usually Sunday, every once in a while Saturday. I'll make the guesstimate video where I crunch those numbers and IV and things like that to guess what we think the estimate will be, and as well as do a look ahead with all the options to see where they sit for the week. Because as you can see on this one, all the holdings come out in the morning. So the holdings are always as of the start of the day. So I have no access to all this information that builds a lot of this chart until tomorrow morning. So today's video is more about what happened today, change in market value. Generally, we would talk about where it puts our options as far as in or out of the money, but since it's Friday and we closed practically everything and rolled it to next week, there's no reason to talk about any of these options that have a yellow block next to it. So we will get through this part a little quicker because we only need to talk about things that already had options sold out till next week. So right off the bat, C3.ai, we got out of that stock, so we don't care what it did. I'm going to take a step back a second. I usually talk about it right when I start, but I was in a rush. So the big gainer for the day on ULTY's side is APLD, Applied Digital Corp, 8.54% increase, and the big loser was Lululemon, which they actually got out of, 19.8% loss. And we'll talk about LFGY when we get there. But as you saw on the thumbnail, I color the names of each stock either green or red based on whether they were up or down. So it was a very big up day with only a couple down on ULTY and only one down on LFGY. So, all right, so let's get back to it. We said APLD was the biggest winner. So even with going up 8.5%, the calls for next week are still 8.2% out of the money. So they're still sitting pretty going into next week. Increase of $545,000 in value. All these values are just increase or decrease in value. These aren't actual money profited or lost because they're unrealized, right? Just like if you're holding stock in your account, the stock goes up, your value goes up. Stock goes down, your value goes down. AST Space Mobile up 1.1% to 31.19. Yeah, so these are already out to next week, and they're already 5% in the money. So they might have a rough week with these unless the stock goes down. Broadcom we got out of, not in them anymore. Coinbase up 2.9% to 251.27, an increase in value of 325,000. Again, if it's got a yellow block next to it, no need to talk about the options because these are no longer current. As you see, 6/6 is the date. 6/6 is the date, which reminds me, I believe it's the D-Day, right? CrowdStrike we got out of. We don't care about it anymore. CoreWeave up 3.78% to $140.16. They still have a set of options here that were already sold out till next week. So those 170s are 21% out of the money, and we increased 613,000 in value. First Solar up 1.5% to 166.35, increase of 112,000 in value. FTAI Aviation up 4.6% to 129.17. Ooh, I forgot to go through updating colors. Okay. Still 1.4% out of the money. Just a quick note, in and out of the money. In the money in our situation is bad because when we sell a call, we are going to have to buy it back at the end. So if it's in the money, it's going to cost more than if it were out of the money. So we're trying to stay out of the money. Close to the money I have is yellow, so that's in our favor, but not very far from danger. And then 5% or greater is green for how far out of the money. We're not going to worry about that too much since all options are now till next Friday. GameStop up 0.44% to $29.58, $39,000 increase in value, and 11.5% out of the money still on those calls. Hims and Hers up 6.75% to 56.33. Sorry, I'm noticing things are wrong. 2.96% out of the money on next week's $58 strike. $836,000 increase in value. Robinhood up 3.27% to 74.88, a $500,000 increase. IonQ up 6.44% to 39.02. Next week's calls are still 5 and 10% out of the money and $885,000 increase in value. Lululemon, we're not in the stock anymore. Mara up 6.05% to 15.78. Still have 1650 calls for next week that are 4.5% out of the money and a $675,000 increase in value. MicroStrategy up 1.5% to 374.47. Their calls for next week are still 3.5% out of the money, and they increased by 215,000 in value. Nvidia up 1.25% to 141.72. Not worried about the options there. They're already rolled. $224,000 increase in value. Oklo close to $1 million. $938,000 increase in value with a 6.64% increase on the day, going to $50.29. And even with a big day, next week's calls are still 5.3% out of the money. Oracle up 1.68% to 174.02. Still 2% out of the money on next week's 177.50s. $144,000 increase in value. Palantir up 6.5% to 127.72. Made over $1 million in value. That should be yellow because it is 0.2% out of the money on next week's 128 calls. Reddit up 8%. Almost won the high for the day. 121.29 was the ending price and over $1 million increase in value. Rigetti up 3.58% to 11.28, $390,000 increase and 10.8% out of the money on next week's 1250s. RH up 4.54% to 183.47. Still 9% out of the money on next week's 200 calls. $398,000 increase. SMCI up 1.91% to 41.55. $210,000 increase. Snowflake, we got out of that. Don't care about it anymore. TNA up 4.69%. So this one was already sitting, at the money Well, actually in the money, and then it went even worse, and then the other half of them went into the money as well. That should be red. I'm not going to worry about it now. $572,000 increase in value, though. TQQQ up 2.86% to 74.21. Again, we were doing okay coming into today, but the 2.86% took us into the money. Again, that should be red. No reason to color it because we don't care about that option anymore. It's old news. $500,000 increase. Tesla up 3.67%. So they had a little bounce from yesterday's battle of the billionaires. 295.14 was the closing price. Their calls for next week are still 8.4% out of the money, and $480,000 increase in value. United Health closed at 303.22. They don't own any shares of it, so we don't have increases or decreases in value of our shares. They just have a put spread, and currently their 305s are 0.5% in the money for next week. Upstart up 5.74% to 54.33. Nearly $950,000 increase. That should be red. We will change that one since it's still alive. This is a next week position. It's a 0.61% in the money, so we need this stock to come back a little bit to get under 54. Vertiv and Vista Corp both rolled their positions to next week, up 2.8% and 1.6% to 115.36 and 173.62, increases by 226 and 192,000. So all in all, great day for our stocks, and actually not a bad day, right? So if you can win on your trades on the same day that your stock goes up almost $11 million, you're doing all right. So obviously we would have made a whole lot more money on the roll today if all these stocks stayed where they were yesterday and we didn't go up $10 million. So we'd have won a whole lot more in the trades. But we're not going to cry over profits. ULTY closed at 617. I was trying to buy some shares around 610 because I got my my dividend payment this morning, and I like to buy more shares if it's under my cost basis, but I just missed it. One thing I wanted to point out, a small thing, so if you watch the video, the way they come up with the goal that they're shooting for when they're coming up with what they're going to pay us is based on the 30-day IV of all the stocks within the fund. So yesterday when they added Applied Digital, they literally added the biggest 30-day IV in the fund. Now, obviously, by weight, Applied is only 1.73% of the total, but it took our 30-day IV from 65.92% to 68.51%, and I'll update all of them tomorrow because they're not all updated throughout the week, but either way, adding a stock with huge IV increased us by 2.5%, which is going to increase the distribution we get by 2.5%. So we like it. We like when they add a high IV stock to the fund. So, okay, 61 million shares. So what I'm going to tell you is there must have been a large increase in shares today that we will find out tomorrow, because the NAV, you're not getting to buy ULTY for $6.17 if it's worth $6.40. They're always within a couple cents. So that means there's going to be a pretty large increase in outstanding shares, which is going to bring this NAV real close to 617. But we're growing. We're in the 400 million club. Make our way to the half billions. Okay, we're halfway through. That's ULTY. Now let's talk about LFGY. All right, as far as LFGY is concerned, real quick, Hut 8 Corp was the big winner with a 13.79% increase, and Meli, or Mercado Libre, got the biggest loser by default because it was the only loser, 3.85%. We'll look at the trades. They sold a lot of shares, but they didn't completely get out of anything. So because when we're talking about stocks themselves, then this isn't contracts, it's just shares. And then once we get into options, then it's contracts, and each contract is 100 shares. So they didn't fully get in or get out of anything. The only thing they added to was Tesla. So everything else they were just selling a little bit here and there. Not sure why, but all right. BitDeer. So I don't know if I want to go into every little detail. So BitDeer rolling to next week made 3,200. Clean Spark rolling the next week lost 133,000. So obviously the stock went up through their calls that were sold this week. And again, if you want more of these details on the week look ahead, then we will look at what every new option for next week is in the holdings and how far in or out of the money, so we see the trading ranges we are looking for these stocks to trade in. Coinbase rolling to next week made $137,000 profit. Core Scientific lost $342,000 rolling to next week. Galaxy, I'm not sure what they were doing. If you take a look at this, and it's not necessarily in this order, so they might have sold them short first and then closed them. But either way, they bought and sold the exact same thing in the same day, and at different amount, because obviously it would have been a loss if you went even for even. If you paid 19 and you collected 17, but $200. That was way too much time to talk about $200. GameStop rolling to next week made $85,000 profit. Robinhood, same thing, right? They bought and sold the exact same thing in the same day, but at different amounts. So $2,300 profit. Hut 8 Corp, that was the big winner on the day. So rolling the next week cost some money. Lost $476,000. Rolling on Mara, and I guess I shouldn't use these terms without explaining them. I always just assume everybody watching these videos probably knows just as much, if not way more than me. But when you roll a position, so you've already sold the calls in this case, right? So at the end of the week, you're going to have to buy them back. There's other scenarios too, but for time. So you're going to have to buy them back. So if you just buy them and close them out the end, then that's it. You just bought the close. But if you're buy to close and sell to open, your next trade, that's called a roll. So if you go to a higher price, they'll call that rolling up, and go to a further out date, which is what all these are. Sometimes they're both. So you're buying to close this Friday, you're selling to open next Friday, so you're rolling out. So that's what I mean when I'm saying they're rolling. So every Friday's like this, lots of rolling. So they lost $206,000 on that. MBTX, I'm losing my voice, might have to take a drink. Made $1,500. This was not a full position thing, as you can see. This was just a little bit of buying and selling within the same day. Not sure why. $1,500. Mercado Libre made $33,000. This might have been the full position. Let's see, 22, because this is a high. Yep, they only have 22 contracts on that because it's a $2,600 stock. They made $33,000 rolling into next week. MicroStrategy made $124,000 rolling into next week. NU Holdings made $1,000 rolling into next week. I don't think this is the full position. 109. No, they've got thousands. They've just already rolled them earlier in the week. Okay, NVIDIA. Again, I think they've got more than 238. No, 240. Okay, so this is the roll. $17,000 profit rolling the next week. So that means they kind of went against them. They ended up paying more than you'd like to, but were able to collect just enough to make a profit. Opera made $500 doing some weird buying and selling within the same day. This is not the roll. PayPal, 490. Yep, 495. Okay, so this is the full roll on PayPal. Lost 34,000. Riot went ahead and this is the full roll. Lost 535,000. Tesla was just goofing off. Bought and sold some next week, all at the same price, all in the same day. $100. Not sure what they were doing. 136. And XYZ closing out, what, 478? Would that be the total? Yep. So this is the full roll to next week. Cost them 34,000. All said and done, they lost $1.3 million on this week's roll. So it was a weird week. They didn't really close and roll much of anything all week. So they were small days, 18,000, 13,000, or 37,000, no trades, 356,000, and loss, and then a $1.3 million loss. So obviously you can already see they lost money on the week. All right, let's take a look at the stocks themselves. BitDeer up over 10% to $13.99. Again, I was trying to hurry up and make these videos, and I forgot to go through and change the colors of our options because the majority of them were being rolled anyway. $461,000 increase, and they do have some 1450s already sold out till next week that are 3.65% out of the money. CleanSpark up 8.54% to $9.79. That was a $430,000 increase in value. Coinbase up just under 3% to $251.27, a almost $30,000 increase. Core Scientific up 2.18% to $12.19, a $148,000 increase. Galaxy Digital up 4.77 to $19.98. They've already got 25 sold out for 2 weeks from now, and they are still 25% out of the money. $94,000 increase. GameStop up 0.44% to $29.58. Everything's been rolled. $23,000 increase. Robinhood up 3.27 to $74.88, and these are already for next week. So, and they're 12% out of the money. That's in our favor. $238,000 increase. Hut 8 Corp, big winner on the day, 13.79% increase to $18.57, and an $814,000 increase. Let's take a quick look and see $18.57. I know they lost money on the roll, but what price did they pick? Because sometimes it depends on a big day. If they did it at the end or the middle or the beginning. So 20 is the strike price for next week, and it's at $18.57. IBIT up 2.4%. They don't sell any options on it, so it's just straight up increases and decreases in value. $59.26, $277,000 increase. Mara up 6.05% to $15.78, a $570,000 increase. MBTX went up today. We don't show increases and decreases in values because they don't own any shares. They just have the credit spread that they sell. So it went to 246.87. That's out till June 20th, so it's got 2 weeks left on it, and it's 5.3% out of the money. Mercado Libre lost 3.85% to 24.82. So it's crazy that they had to spend, $1, $2 to close out a 26.02 strike price with a 24.82 closing price, but it went down 225,000. You'd think that would have been pennies to close, but I'll show you what I'm talking about in case you forgot. Buy to close, 26.0250. They paid $1.98 a share to close those, even though it was out of the money by over $100. MicroStrategy up 1.54% to $374.47, $200,000 increase. NU Holdings up 0.3% to $12.15. What do we have? I don't know why we don't have any color there. They have 1250 sold for next week that are 2.88% out of the money, and it went up 15,000 in value. Nvidia up about 1.25 to 141.72, $41,000 increase in value. Opera up 3.41% to 18.98. Their calls are sold out for 2 weeks from now. They're still 5.3% out of the money, and it increased by $176,000. PayPal up 1.32% to 73.43, $47,000 increase. Riot Platforms up just over 9.5% to 985. That's a $517,000 increase in value. Tesla 3.67% increase to 295.14. They already rolled these yesterday back when Tesla tanked. So they are still 14% out of the money for next week, increased by 183,000. And finally, Block or XYZ up 2.19% to 64.99, a $66,000 increase, totaling an increase in value by $4.5 million. LFGY closed at 39.87, so they had a good day going up. They went, let's see, 50,000 shares added. Yes, so that comes out on the holdings. So that happened yesterday, and we found it out this morning. So we won't know till tomorrow if there was another increase. But as of right now, $3.125 million shares in the fund, roughly 120. It went up in value by 4.5 million. So that's going to be more closer to 125, plus or minus the drop from closing out all those trades, and then plus or minus if anybody bought into it, into the fund today. All right. Whew, that was a lot of information. This is my longest video yet. So, okay, let's finish it up with the dad joke of the day. First, I just want to thank you. If you made it this far, that's impressive. Put the thing on fast forward, right? But thanks for watching. If you're not a subscriber already, please click the subscribe button, and I will keep on pulling all the work. So just so you know how much we went through, if you've ever seen these pages, I think the fund managers hate me, so they're just trying to make me do as much. There was 106 lines of information to process for ULTY and 128 lines of information to process for LFGY. A lot of them, they even spread out the trades instead of just buying and selling all at once, which like usual. So it was extra difficult today. So please give me some love. Hit that like button. All right, dad joke of the day. What do you call a sleepwalking nun? Well, she's got to be a Roman Catholic. Okay, thank you. Hope you had a great week. Have a nice weekend, and come back. I'll make a Saturday my trades of the week video, and then probably a Sunday week look ahead for the funds. All right, thanks for watching.